April 5th, 2022, meeting of the Yucca Valley Town Council to order. We had a closed session. Can we get a report out of closed session?
Yes, thank you. The town council met in closed session with respect to all three items on the closed session agenda. There is no reportable action with respect to any of the items, and that concludes the report.
Thank you. Can we get a roll call, please?
Council members Abel,
Here.
Dennison,
Here.
Droz,
Here.
Lombardo,
Here.
and Mayor Schooler.
Here. Okay, if you'll stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag and remain standing. Do we have somebody for an invocation with us this evening? Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You can be seated. All right, first order of business is presentations, introductions, and recognitions. Presentation, High Desert Water District.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We're pleased to have the High Desert Water District joining us today. It's been a little while with COVID and some of the other shutdowns that public agencies have experienced. It's good to have our fellow public agencies joining us for different updates. And so with that, I'd like to introduce their General Manager, Paul Pichel.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay? Well, it's mine and staff's pleasure. I appreciate the opportunity to have us provide the presentation. Appreciate Mayor Jim Schooler, council members, staff, and all the public. Basically, my job here is to introduce the staff that know everything and then answer any questions you might have. Again, I'm Paul Peschel, the General Manager at High Desert Water District. Doug Colbert, and this is in the order of the presentation. Doug Colbert, he's our Chief Plant Operator. He'll be giving a presentation on the water reclamation facility. Ryan Hutchins, the Financial Business Analyst, he's going to give an update on the sewer project. Glenn Ware, he's the Production Foreman, and he will give a Water Resources presentation. And then Tony Culver, Assistant General Manager of Operations, he's going to give a presentation on some key projects. So they'll each introduce themselves. It'll be a quick presentation, and then we'll answer any questions you may have. And just to let you know, I was instructed by the young man over here, the right is to move forward, the left is to move backward.
Thank you, Mayor Schuler and the rest of the council members. We're happy to be here, and I'm happy to bring you a little quick presentation on the water reclamation facility. I just finished our annual report, so these numbers were fresh and everything. Our average daily flow is current, and it's about 0.566 million gallons a day, and our effluent flows are a little over 500,000. That's about 35% of the design flow of the facility. As you can see, our total volume from 2021 was 483 acre feet. We process about 19 dry metric tons a month of biosolids, and we dispose about 17 dry metric tons. Those, the disposal comes and gets picked up by a commercial hauler, hauled to Arizona where the regulations are less stringent. They turn it into Class B and land apply it. So that's what those numbers are there. As far as our total connections, which kind of affects everybody here, we have 3,503 total properties connected out of a possible 4,525. That represents about 77% of our total connections. As you can see, the little pie there, single-family residents make up the majority of our connections, followed by commercial, actually multifamily, commercial, and then mobile home parks. We have our fats, oils, and grease program. This is something is new. Once we got rid of the septic tanks, we got to take care of our collection system. There's a possible 446 total commercial connections. So far, we have 320 connected. We've received 382 applications. The reasons why that number is higher than the actual connected is because every commercial business is required, whether they're connected or not, to fill out an application. Some of them got a little zealous and got theirs in ahead of time, and so, which is great. So that's why that number is a little different. We've permitted 44 commercial businesses. We have a couple non-compliant businesses, and what that means is that they're connected, but yet they haven't filled out an application as required. So that's what that means. We have 20 vacant lots or unoccupied businesses, and we keep a kind of track of those as the businesses become occupied. Most of that is happened during COVID, where some businesses just they just stopped doing business, and so we keep track of that. Once they do become connected, we contact them. And I want to introduce Ryan Hutchins, who's going to take the next slide.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Hutchins with the High Desert Water District. I want to say thank you for having us here to give an update on our sewer project for the Phase 2 of Yucca Valley. The recent Regional Water Quality Control Board amended the Basin Plan Amendment in June of 2021, combining Phases 2 and 3. So the project now is what we're calling the Phase 2 project of the sewer project. As of right now, staff is currently exploring different alternative projects and deliverables of how to perform that project, whether that's in-house or hiring a contractor, and we are currently looking at those. And we do have some current deadlines that have been determined by the Regional Water Quality Control Board in regards to the completion of the Phase 2 project, and that will be determined also upon the listing or non-listing of the Western Joshua trees. So we do have December 31st of 2028, which that is in a short less than 6 years, if the Western Joshua trees are not listed, and December 31st, 2031, if they are listed. Staff is currently looking at federal and state grants and then potential loans to follow up on those grants to provide for the project. And then we will roll on into our water resources project. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Glenn Ware. I'm the production foreman for the Water District, and we're going to talk a little bit about water resources. Keep in mind, this is based off our most current water master report, which is our water year is October through September, the year being 2020 through 2021. So our total was 2,557 acre feet, or that's 833 million gallons. Keep in mind that 1 acre foot is equal to 325,851 gallons. Of that amount, this is a 7 acre foot increase from the prior water year. The top producers being High Desert Water District and Hawks Landing at Blue Skies. High Desert Water District produced a total of 2,174 acre feet, and Hawks Landing at Blue Skies produced 339 acre feet. Ames Basin, this is outside of the Warren Basin. We have one well out there, and the water deliveries were 779 acre feet. This accounted for about 26% of the water produced by High Desert Water District during the 2020-21 water year. State Water Project, recharge water. Imported supplies of State Water Project for artificial groundwater recharge use totaled 2,801 acre feet. So typically with recharge water, you guys might have seen our ponds around town. We try to at least match what we take out the prior year, if not exceed that. And as you can see, we exceeded it this year. That's kind of dependent on drought and what water is available from the state. The wastewater reclamation facility recharged 421 acre feet. Moving on to water quality, along with the report, there's nitrate samples and total dissolved solids. Everything was consistent. Nothing exceeded the maximum contaminant level set by the state, so we're good there. Precipitation. So the precipitation for the year was 2.7 inches. This is a 4.11 inch decrease from the prior year, which was 6.81 inches. So far this year, we're off to a good start. Well, we were, it kind of came to a halt with the rain here, but we've already exceeded last year at 2.93 inches so far. Turn it over to Tony Colbert now.
Good evening. Tonight, I'm happy to show you some projects we have going that's hopefully benefits the town and the water district. So phase one of the sewer project included our plant there at the bottom right of the screen there. And part of that project, we're supposed to put we have to put an extraction well in because we're recharging into a basin. We have no wells in that area. So we have to put an extraction well, and we actually have to recharge it again for the state requirements. So what we plan on doing is running the pipeline across, then down behind Home Depot and go across the highway, and then we have a pipeline up there to the top of the slide there, where we're going to hook into the pipeline, because at that point the pipeline is actually owned by High Desert Water. And what we propose is to keep going down, and it's hard to see, but there'll be, depending on what the town's needs are, but we'd like to put in 2 or 3 outlets so the town could use the non-potable water to irrigate their fields and try to lessen your burden on, actually it'll help us also. So we're trying to do the best we can to help the town get the cheapest water we can to water the field. So that's one of our biggest projects. We're in design right now, and hopefully we'll be working with the town later on to get some grants for this once it's all designed. And then second, Glenn talked about the Ames Basin, where we have a well outside of our district actually, and we call it the Ames Ritchie aquifer there. And right now in downtown, we're almost filled up. We're not quite full with what water we can take, so we take as much as we can. We went from, I think we had like 26 years worth of water in the 90s. Now we're up to 42 years worth of water just in our upper aquifer. So we're looking really good with water, but we want to maintain that, and we want to keep taking water. So in order to take water, we're going to go up here and do another recharge site up on the mesa, and then that way we can put another well, because we're only allowed 700 plus acre feet up there every year. And if we start recharging, we can take more water from up there, which would save our basin down here. So our goal with this project is to have more storage and more water for the town of Yucca Valley and the mesa. So it's a very important project to me, and I'm hoping to get this going pretty soon. We're getting in design with this one also. So after that, if you guys had any questions that I could answer, I'd be more than willing to.
Okay, thank you. Is there any member of the public that wanted to ask a question or comment on that? Seeing none, council, bring it to the council. Any council members want to start it off? Jeff?
Yeah, I just have a question. The non-potable water, is that, would that be at a cheaper rate, or is it
Oh,
the
yeah,
same?
for sure.
Okay.
We'd want to get it, we were talking about pricing, but we really don't know until we actually start pumping it out of the ground. But there's no reason why it's going to be much more than what we pay for state water. Right now, we did quick math, and this could be totally wrong, but I think you guys are paying almost $3,000 an acre foot. And we pay $670 and change per acre foot from the state. So we're hoping it's around that amount, but until we get the actual numbers, we won't know. But we definitely want to get it down way cheaper, so.
Okay, and one more question. The new well site up there on the mesa, is that near Bighorn?
Well, it is
How
in
do
the
you guys-
Bighorn influx, but we already have an agreement with Bighorn, and this is something we're going to have to work with them. We already are. We've met with them, and they're because it's going to help their aquifer too, and it's going to help their water supply. So we're working with Bighorn, but we already have an agreement to pump up there. So.
Well, I recharged last night. I left my hose on all night, so.
Yeah.
I really did.
We
so.
appreciate that.
Councilmember Abel?
Yes, thank you, first of all, for coming tonight. We really appreciate the Water District sending so many people and informing us all about what's going on. We love our long-lasting partnership with the Water District. We really respect you guys, and I know we all work for the common good of the community, so thank you for being here. As you were all speaking, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested in all this. I have a lot of things to mention and ask, so bear with me. First of all, you talked about the potable water. I'm sure you're also going to perhaps work with the school district as far as bringing that water perhaps for their fields, or is that not allowed?
It's not that.
I'm thinking lock antenna.
Yeah, doing the parks for the town is going to be a lot easier than running pipe to the schools. And we would love to do that, but that'd be a huge project, and that may be something down the line that we could do. But for now, the town's parks they're in line with our pipeline, so it wouldn't be as hard to do the town,
Okay.
at least the towns for now. But purple pipe eventually, I think, would be a system, but it's down the ways because there's not really that much irrigation in Yucca Valley. Everyone does a good job conserving.
Right.
So pretty much that water that's left over that you guys don't use will be recharged back into the ground. So.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking lock antenna, junior high is not too far
Yeah,
from
it's
that
just-
facility.
It's not, but it is. You
Okay.
know, it's just on the other side of the.
Well, yeah, in your particular case, you need a certain amount of water flow coming in and structure to make the plant work, but then you have a problem if you have too much treatable water. So it's like you said, it's a win-win situation if you can move some of that water off-site and then help the community. So that would be wonderful. I'm also very appreciative of our community joining in partnerships to help keep the assessment down as low as possible. So that's half-cent sales tax helping towards the keeping the bill for our residents down is wonderful. And I really like how the Water District sent out those notices saying that you'd save this much money because of the measure that the community approved. So that's not going to last forever, so we're going to have to go back to our voters. But I think they'll see the real value in continuing that 1 cent sales tax, since a lot of our sales tax is from out of area people too. So it's sort of like Palm Springs or other resort areas. A lot of that money comes from outside to help the residents here. So that's great. Lock Antenna Road, there's a lot of homes up that road and so forth, and they don't have public water. Is there anything in the future or anything that perhaps the Water District could consider, whether it's a special assessment or a grant or something to bring water or have a water system from there going down?
So a few years, we got approached by a few people over there that asked that question, and we told them that we could do something with an assessment district or something. Even if we did the funding in-house, we probably could do it. But that's something that definitely could be on the plate. It'd be pretty easy to do because we could just go down Juarez and hit that area and get.
Right. So if you got enough residents that were willing to put it on maybe a vote for a special assessment district, they could actually have public water.
Yeah, they just have to have a group of them, enough of them, because if they don't all do it, it's not going to be
Right.
affordable. So if they had
And you
enough
will-
people to approach us, we'd be more than willing to work with them.
Oh, wonderful. That's great news. Great. As far as a couple things as a customer of the Water District, it would be really nice if somebody in your technical department could ever get online, how you can go online and you can see where the sewers are being hooked up and the next possible project. Be nice to be able to see be able to type in an address and see if there's been retrofitted, because oftentimes you have to contact the Water District as you're selling a home to see if it's been retrofitted, and so the poor person on the phone has to look it up in their records, and I feel bad taking up staff's time by asking about something that probably could be in a database that you put it on your website. Somebody could look that up and print out the paper saying it was done.
Yeah, I'll check with Sherry. She's in charge of that department to see if there's something we can do that's legal. I don't know, what information we can actually put online, but we can check it.
Yeah, legalities would be, but it just saves maybe some staff time with the people up front.
Yeah.
And then also another system that might be helpful is people who have rental properties. You're always having to put water on and take water off. Is there a system that could be sort of fast-tracked to where you're an ongoing customer, you've been a customer for 20 years, you have a good track record, you could look it up easily, and be able to just transfer water on without going through the whole application process and photocopies of your driver's license and all that?
Again, that'd be a question for Sherry, and she's up on all that stuff. I don't deal with the water billing, but
Okay.
if you would give her a call, she could, those are great questions for her. If not, I could ask, but.
Okay. Well, there's just some suggestions, because, it takes a lot of,
Exactly.
it seems cumbersome. And then, do you have any plans on opening the lobby? I know it's been closed for almost 2 years. Are we going to be opening it to the public again?
Well, for now, we have opened up the board meetings. We're discussing internally what would be some good timing for that. One of the things we have going on right now, we've got a shortage of staffing for various reasons, so that's somewhat coming into play. But we do need to circle back and discuss that with the board and see what timing would work to open things up.
Okay, because they've always been great. Whenever I've gone into the offices, your staff's always been fantastic. You get that personal touch versus, the barricade out front, and you can't go in and you drop off your bill or whatever. But yeah, that'd be great. So I appreciate you all being here, and we really are thankful for that. And you guys do a great job, and your job's gotten bigger and bigger through the years. So thanks again.
Councilmember Lombardo.
Want to thank you for coming, and who's minding the store? You're all here, right? I'm excited about it. You still have other staff, right?
Yeah, so we brought the store over here.
Okay. I'm excited to hear that there's opportunity to have the parks use some reclaimed water in the near. You didn't really state dates when that would be available, but
We're still in the planning process, so as soon as the plans get approved, or get drawn up, and we really want to get some grants for this job, because it's gonna be a big job. And
It will be.
We want to try to shoot for some grants, and I think supposedly, if there's more organizations that get together, we have a better chance of getting grants. So we're hoping to work with the town and as a team and get this thing going.
is it like a 5, 10-year, 20-year project, or
We're supposed to start pulling water out within 8 years,
within 8 years?
as it started. It's already been 2.
Okay.
So we have, and I want to get it done soon, because you know how
Yeah.
fast time flies right now. So
Yeah.
sooner we can, the sooner the better.
Okay.
So we'd like to get it done within 3 years from now, but that's wishful thinking, I think. So.
Part of what your overall picture is, it sounds like to me, is to have options of where to move water once the state has some availability. You want to be able to put it in an aquifer, preferably in town, but you have to, in order to do that, you have to be able to recharge other places as well. Is that?
Are you talking about the second project?
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, we're almost full here, and we're going to start taking water from the wastewater side. So they already last year, they weren't at full capacity yet, and they put in 500 acre feet. So that's 500 acre feet we take less that we take from Mojave, who is our water, purveyor, can't even talk. And so we want to put that water somewhere. The board loves buying water, and the more water we have stored, the better off the district is as a whole. So we're trying to make us better and better every year, so.
And the interconnectivity helps
Oh, yeah.
move that around.
Yep.
Okay, so that sounds really good, and I'm excited. Thank you so much for being easy to work with and being part of the community. I think it's been a great thing. I've watched this over the years, the whole water pipeline and the sewer, and it's neat to see us moving in the right direction. It's really made a big difference to Yucca Valley. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
My turn. Just a couple of questions. One is, you were talking about the 3,500 connections. You have about 4,500 in this first phase, so about 30+%. Is there a timeline that you're shooting for our community to complete that 30%?
23, right?
It's now.
Yeah.
Every stage is open currently. Stages 1 through 10 are all open.
Okay.
Stage 10 currently has till the end of April, which is this month, and everyone who's not connected will be submitted to the state as a non-compliant property.
Well, I want to say thank you, one, to the district. I know people that they had already gone down the path of doing the connection, and because of the contractors out there busy, she had to wait a little bit longer. And very thankful, the Water District said, yeah, we got everything, no problem, easy to work with. But that makes me think about some of the programs that we've had for our residents in the community, so they can move forward with connections. Has there been a good reception of that, and is it being utilized in a way to help those folks that are having difficulties?
Yeah, I mean,
Like the grant programming?
Yeah, the district does have a loan program to help anyone, financially to get connected.
Okay.
In regards to the timeline and the bottleneck is it does fall down to that, contractor availability, and then the permitting process and scheduling. So, any property owner that is moving forward with the connection process and can show that they've either, signed a contract or have a scheduled date with a contractor, nothing negative will happen to them. The State Water Resource Control Board is really looking for people who are, refusing to connect to the sewer, not just taking additional time for
Good,
various
I just
for
wanted
various
to
reasons.
just mention, those opportunities are valuable for our community, and I'm glad that they're still being used out there and available. The other one was, there was a mention of Class B. I don't know what that means on Class B product. I'm thinking it has to do with the waste.
Yes. There's different classes of biosolids. You have the Class B is for putting on for non-food, basically for feed, that kind of thing. If it's going to go on to food that is going to be human consumption, it has to be Class A, exceptional quality. So there's, I think, 3 or 4 different versions of the biosolids that you can do. And right out of our screw press, you can't do anything with that. It has to go through some process. So that's what Class B is.
Is Class B something that would be used, say, like on turf and that type of things, more ornamental ground as fertilizer, or I don't know what is that
It
what?
depends.
Is that
I mean,
like a
there's-
nitrohumus kind of thing?
Yes, there's, like I said, it comes out of our press as just a sludge, and they turn it into Class B by adding chemicals to it. They might add some lime or whatever, and it basically, the truck that picks it up dumps it right onto the field in Arizona, and then they mix it up and then spread it. And so it really depends on what you're putting it on. If it's just going to be feed for animals, then Class B is good. But like I said, if you're going to put it in like a park or whatever, it has to be Class A, exceptional quality. So for environmental and health purposes.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the clarification on phases 2 and 3 with the timelines and, of course, the Western Joshua Tree and that outcome. So that's a big deal for our whole community, so thanks for being on top of it. And, of course, for the possible purple pipe in the future.
Yeah, well, my questions have been answered or asked and answered so far, except for just want to say that I'm really excited about the non-potable water for irrigation, that you're willing to look at us and that we're in line with your pipeline. That's good news to hear that. Wanted to ask too, there used to be tours scheduled by the district of the treatment facility, and I thought that was really informative. Is that still in place?
Yeah, they should be starting up shortly.
Okay,
Yeah, so
okay.
I know Cody's already scheduling some, so.
Great, yeah, those are really informative. Your PowerPoint, it was great presentation. It moved a little fast for me to read all of that. Is that available on your website, or do I actually have that in my pack?
We can send a copy. Yeah.
Oh, I'd appreciate that, yeah, thank you. Okay, so thank you for the presentation, awesome. You guys are doing a great job, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, we will move along to recognition. We have a proclamation to read regarding One Legacy, DMV Donate Life Month. And I believe there's a representative online to talk to us about that before I read the proclamation.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I have your name here.
Sure. My name is Cheryl Mahan, and I'm a One Legacy ambassador. So first of all, I would like to thank the town of Yucca Valley, Mayor Schooler, and the town council for recognizing April 2022 as DMV Donate Life Month. Donate Life Month is really important to me. My family has a kidney disease called polycystic kidney disease. And the initials for that are PKD. And those three little initials have forever changed the course of my family's life. My father had kidney disease. My siblings have kidney disease. And unfortunately, PKD has now gone into the next generation of my nieces and nephews. And for PKD, there is no cure. You will end up on dialysis and be on dialysis 3 times a week for 3 to 4 hours a day, or you will need a kidney transplant. So when my brother came to me and said that his kidneys had failed, as my father's had, I said, hey, I'll be your living donor. And thankfully, I went through all the testing, and I was healthy enough to be approved to be his living donor. And so being able to give him the gift of life has been a blessing to me. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And I had the joy of being able to watch my brother see his children get married, and he's now able to watch his 3 grandchildren grow up. My sister, who also has the disease, received her gift of life in 2020. So we are very grateful for that. So I would like to just encourage you all in your town of Yucca Valley to either register at the DMV, or you can go to www.donatelifecalifornia.org and become a registered organ, eye, and tissue donor and be somebody's hero. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Good story. Thank you for your dedication also. So I'm going to read the proclamation. This is National Donate Life Month, April 2022. Whereas organ, tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, where more than 106,000 individuals nationwide are currently on the National Organ Transplant waiting list, and a daily average of 17 patients die while waiting for a much-needed organ. And whereas patients are matched with a donor depending on the severity of their illness, body size, tissue type, blood type, and other important medical information. And whereas, on average, one tissue donor can enhance the lives of more than 75 others. And whereas, millions of lives each year are saved and healed by donors of organs, tissues, marrow, and blood where donors are not restricted by age or medical condition. And whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California Registry when applying for or renewing their driver's licenses or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the mayor of the town of Yucca Valley, the month of April 2022 be designated as DMV Donate Life Month, and encourages all Californians to check yes when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card, or by signing up as an organ donor at www.donatelifecalifornia.org or www.vidacalifornia.org. Presented this 5th day of April, 2022. Thank you. And we have a signed proclamation to send to you, or you could pick up. So thank you for that. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Mayor, I'll approve tonight's agenda. I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
and Mayor Schooler.
Yes. Moving on to the consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine matters or formal documents covering previous town council instruction. Items are enacted by one motion and a second without separate discussion unless a member of the town council or town staff requests dialogue on a specific item at the beginning of the meeting. Requests for public comment on the consent agenda item should be filed with the town clerk. Is there anyone that would, any member of the public that wishes to comment or on anything on the consent agenda? Any member of the council?
No.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion.
I will second.
Councilmember Droz, second.
Council members Abel,
Abel, yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
and Mayor Schooler.
Yes. Moving on to item number 12, addendum to the general plan EIR, State Clearinghouse number 2012-111-021, General Hand general plan housing and safety element updates.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The recommended action this evening is that the Town Council adopts the resolution approving and adopting the addendum to General Plan EIR State Clearinghouse Number 2012111021 for the 21 through 29 housing element and 2021 safety element updates, and approves and adopts the 2021 through 2029 housing element and 2021 safety element update. As the council is aware, the state law mandates the town have a general plan, and in that process, the state mandates updates of certain elements based upon specific schedules. The town is contracted for these services with PlaceWorks, and this evening we have PlaceWorks staff remoting in for the presentation. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to that staff and have them walk through the presentation, the PowerPoint presentation, which is in the council's packet this evening. We'll then open up the public hearing for any public testimony and then come back to the council for questions. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to PlaceWorks staff.
All right, Shane, thank you so much. I will share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that? Is that look good?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, to start off, thank you so much for attending this meeting tonight. My name is Lindsay Klein, and I'm joined by Jacqueline Protzman-Rohr and Timmy Seal. And we are the consultant team PlaceWorks that is helping the town prepare their housing element update and their safety element update. Okay. So I'm going to give a quick review of the housing element and the state's requirements for housing elements. So the update reviews existing and projected housing needs in the town and updates policies and programs to make sure the town is meeting the community's needs. The housing element must be approved by the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. We call them HCD. And HCD is requiring that the town adopt their housing element. There's a 120-day grace period to stay in that timeline, but the town will be adopting the housing element hopefully soon, tonight. Okay. Next slide here. Okay. The housing element includes multiple sections that are required by the state. As you can see on this slide, the required components of the housing element are a review of the previous housing element for implementation over the past few years, existing conditions, and this includes review of data, mostly from the census, about housing and resident demographics, and changes to local and regional regulations, analysis of potential constraints to housing production in Yucca Valley, an inventory of vacant sites in Yucca Valley that are appropriate for housing, and proposed housing policies, programs, and quantified objectives. Any changes to these have been informed by state law, town staff input, or input from the Public Planning Commission or Town Council during outreach on the housing element. On this slide is the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, or the RHNA, and this is a number of new units that must be planned for in each jurisdiction. This number is set by the state and then passed down to SCAB. So Yucca Valley's RHNA is 750 units, meaning the town needs to identify sites that can accommodate 750 units from 2021 to 2029. And for context, in the last 8-year cycle, the town is required to plan for 930 units. So this is a reduction from last time. For context, the AMI for San Bernardino County for a family of 4 is $77,500. The incomes are updated annually, but we have also noted in the housing element that is published that the town has a lower median income than the countywide average. This, you can see here, is the site's inventory map of the vacant sites that can accommodate the units to meet the RHNA. There are more zoomed in versions of this map in the housing element itself if you want to take a more detailed look. Overall, the sites are well distributed north and south of Highway 62 in a variety of zoning districts, including the Old Town Specific Plan area. So the state requires that the town revise the housing element to respond to comments that we've received from the state HCD and public comments as well when they are, reasonable within state law. So HCD provided feedback on the draft housing element with revisions required to comply with the department's interpretation of state law. And in addition, since the housing element was submitted to HCD for review and approval, the town has received comments from the public. And HCD has supported changes to the housing element that will respond to those comments. We'll walk through those revisions on the housing element in the next few slides here. So to start, the Planning Commission and Town Council reviewed major components of the draft housing element update last summer at a joint meeting in August. We received comments from the public, Planning Commission, and Town Council during that meeting. And those are summarized, the comments are summarized on the next slide here. So as you can see here, the main comments or the main themes of the comments from the August meeting included questions and comments about how we can better address local barriers to housing development, encouraging the town to seek funding to support affordable housing, request the town advertises land that could be used to develop housing on the town's website, at town hall, at meetings with developers, or in other venues as available, and then also ask the town to limit development in areas at high risk of natural hazards or with natural resources. The town brought both the housing element and the safety element before the Planning Commission on February 22nd. The Planning Commission had a few questions or comments as listed on this slide, specifically about support for allowing residential development in the commercial zones, appropriate management of Joshua trees, and the Planning Commission also disclosure of land ownership on evacuation constrained properties. And the Planning Commission, upon review of the document at this meeting, they recommended the draft elements for adoption. So on the next few slides, we'll review the specific revisions that the town has made since the town council last saw the housing element in August, and we'll walk through some of them to ensure those changes are clear. So on this slide, you can see that some programs were augmented to add details requested by the state or the public during comments. These changes to programs that you can see here are related to reducing barriers to housing development and encouraging the town to seek additional funding for affordable housing. These are more changes to programs. The first one here, we made revisions to a program to ask the town to raise awareness amongst developers about land available for residential development. And then we also added more information on the background sections about fire hazard zones and how the safety element minimizes fire risk to residential areas in Yucca Valley. We also added more data that was not a program change, but just a disclosure about overpayment and how that's kind of split between different tenures in the state. We also revised the housing element to reflect the state's allocations of 750 units and not 749. This did not impact the town's ability to meet the state requirements for the RENA. And a big one here was site plan and design review. So we revised permitting requirements for residential uses in the mixed use commercial zone to require a site plan and design review permit instead of a specific plan permit. So we revised program to, H2-6 to say that the town will continue to monitor the permitting process for constraints to development. And we also revised the housing element to disclose what the findings are to obtain a site plan and design review permit. This was already done and amended in chapter 9.09 of the town's code. So that's kind of all good now. Next here, we added changes, or we added background information to the housing element about what on and off sites improvements the town requires, and also background information about the amendments specific in the building code. And then another big one that was a change that the state requested was to revise program 5-2. And we committed the town to revise the reasonable accommodation procedures to be consistent with state law. On this slide here, The state had a lot of questions on the topic of the realistic capacity for development on the sites in the land inventory. So we added a lot of information in the housing element to essentially prove to the state that the town's existing development standards are appropriate to allow development at the densities proposed in the land inventory. We also added more information projecting how many extremely low incomes are expected in Yucca Valley through 2029. This number is based on a state formula, and it's by no means, you're not required to meet that number by 2029. And we also revised a program in the housing element to just require that the town assist in obtaining funds and services for those types of households. In response to HCD's comments on emergency shelters, the town amended their emergency shelter permitting process and removed requirements for discretionary review. So that already happened in January 2022. Chapter 9.48 was amended in the town's code. And we also revised program 1-4 in the housing element to ask that the town amend their emergency shelter operational standards a little bit further to fully comply with state law. We also, HCD determined that the town's definition of family did not comply with state law. And so the town has added a new program to amend that definition of family to meet state law requirements. Another change here, so these changes, we're not committing the town to do anything new. We were just explaining kind of to HCD what the process here is in the town. So we added references to mitigation measures that are already in the safety element that you'll hear about in a little bit, that would be implemented on sites in the land inventory so they can be developed without affecting the environment. We also added information about the town's procedures to permit single family and multifamily development. On this slide, you can see we added some information just describing how the public comments received on the housing element were considered and incorporated into the housing element. 3 comment letters were received on this housing element, so those have been included. We also added a paragraph just confirming that the housing element is consistent with the rest of the general plan and will continue to be. And we also added information clarifying that all zoning and development standards and fees are posted on the town's website. Okay, state law changed last year with the passage of AB 1304, which has required changes to the housing element. So the state continued to augment requirements for the fair housing section of the housing element while this document was already in the process of being created. So therefore, there are a couple of new revisions to the fair housing section of the document that I'll discuss in the next few slides. So we added a couple of different types of information to this section. First, we added additional analysis on fair housing. And we also added a new piece which discusses how the sites in the housing element interact with fair housing indicators that are discussed in the housing element. So there are things you can see on this slide, like patterns related to race, disability, concentrated areas of affluence, and others. We also added additional fair housing analysis to these sections just per state law, which kind of resulted in the additions of more information and programs. So as you can see here, we revised some programs to focus more on promoting revitalization strategies, and then also promoting development in denser areas of the town, which is really kind of near Highway 62, which is near transit and services and amenities. We also revised a program to encourage the town to attend meetings held by the San Bernardino County Urban Consortium. And then we also added more information about education around Section 8 housing opportunities. We had a couple more revisions to our programs. Here on this slide, you can see we revised a program to require that the town meet with school districts to identify any housing factors that may be affecting student attendance or performance. We also revised programs to discuss subsidized housing and how that can be best supported. Looking back at we added information just looking back at historic trends in the town and how that affected development. And we've also added more timelines and metrics and milestones for implementation of all programs that are related to fair housing in the housing element, all required by the state. So now I'm going to pass the presentation off to the safety element team to walk through the safety element update.
Thank you, Lindsay, and good evening, council members. As Lindsay said, I'll be presenting an overview of the safety element update. I'll first provide an overview of what the safety element is, go over the new state requirements, and then go into the updates we made to the safety element, including the vulnerability assessment. Next slide. So the safety element is one of the mandatory elements of a general plan, and it focuses on natural and human-caused hazards within and surrounding Yucca Valley, as well as emergency response and preparedness. The goal of this element is to protect the town, including residents, businesses, infrastructure, and the environment against threats to public health and safety, such as flooding, wildfires, and associated smoke, seismic hazards and emergency evacuations, as well as hazards that may worsen in the future, such as extreme heat and drought. The safety element is just one part of Yucca Valley's overall approach to protecting the community against natural hazards, and it integrates with several other town documents to do this. The safety element is a high-level, broad document that discusses the town's comprehensive public safety approach. There's also the Yucca Valley Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, which is a detailed short-term plan that focuses on specific actions, as well as the Resilient Inland Empire Toolkit, which is a collection of resources that provides data on the risks from climate-related hazards, and then tools and resources for developing climate adaptation and resilience strategies to reduce these risks in the Inland Empire region. The safety element integrates information from all of these plans and ties into them as appropriate to help create a cohesive safety approach. Next slide. So since the previous safety element was adopted in 2013, several new laws have come into effect. These updates to the government code increase requirements in the flood and wildfire sections to identify responsible agencies and ensure coordination among these agencies, as well as minimize the risk for new buildings and essential facilities. There's also a focus on adaptation and resilience through SB 379, requiring safety elements to prepare a vulnerability assessment that identifies risks from hazards and develop goals, policies, and implementation actions to build resilience in the community. AB 2140 allows for the incorporation of the local hazard mitigation plan, which makes the town potentially eligible for increased disaster relief funds. Two of the new laws, SB 99 and AB 747, focus on evacuation, requiring the identification of evacuation route, capacity, and safety, as well as evacuation constrained areas. And both evacuation routes and evacuation constrained parcels were identified as part of this update. Next slide. So this is an overview of the vulnerability assessment, which is required by SB 379 and is also the main analysis that goes into the safety element update. So this assessment, which is summarized in Appendix C of the safety element, evaluates how people and key community assets such as infrastructure, buildings, economic assets, ecosystems and natural resources, and key community services may be affected by climate change hazards and the degree to which they're vulnerable. So in Yucca Valley, local climate-related hazards include more frequent and intense regional wildfires and associated smoke, more intense rainfall, which may trigger flooding, increases in drought conditions, and more frequent extreme heat events. The vulnerability assessment also evaluates the availability of existing policies, programs, and resources to help people and assets prepare for, respond to, and recover from different impacts. The findings from this assessment inform the development of policies that went into the safety element update, and a matrix of the results of the vulnerability assessment are available in Appendix C of the safety element. Next slide. So during this update process, we kept all of the existing sections, added new background content, and revised and added goals and policies to address all relevant natural and human-caused hazards and to meet updated state laws. So I'll briefly go into some of these changes to those sections. In all sections, we added new content that describes the potential changes associated with hazard risk in the future. In the introduction section, we've incorporated the Yucca Valley Local Hazard Mitigation Plan by reference. In the seismic hazard section, we added new content to discuss earthquake risk and liquefaction. In the flood hazard section, we added new content to discuss the agencies responsible for flood protection and flood control. In the wildland fire section, we've revised the title to be fire hazards and included new content that discusses the wildland urban interface, structural fires, and also past occurrences of fires. In the extreme weather section, we added new content to discuss extreme heat and drought. In the hazard materials section, we added new content to discuss agencies responsible for hazardous materials, the location of hazardous material sites within the town, and the danger associated with transportation of hazardous materials throughout the town. In the last section, emergency services, we revised the title to read Disaster Preparedness, Response, and Recovery, and included new content that discusses emergency preparedness, evacuation routes and evacuation constrained areas, public safety power shutoffs, and mutual aid agreements. So with that, I will hand it back over to Lindsay to go over the environmental review.
Okay, thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, so in addition to the housing element and the safety element, we have conducted some environmental review. So as stated on this slide, both elements discussed tonight require environmental review to comply with CEQA, the state environmental laws. So the town prepared an addendum to the town's existing general plan EIR. The addendum finds that both elements do not directly result in changes to the environment. The existing general plan EIR covers potential impacts from projects consistent with the general plan. Individual projects which result from the implementation of policies in either the housing element or the safety element are required to comply with the general plan, and therefore the elements do not create new or significant impacts that are not already identified in the town's general plan EIR. So on next steps here, this slide explains the steps of the housing element update process. As you can see, we are on one of the final phases of this process. And following the adoption of the housing element, HCD has 90 days to review the submitted and adopted housing element. And that is all I have. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
So, Mayor and Council, want to first say thank you to Lindsay and Jacqueline this evening for an excellent presentation, as well as to the entire PlaceWorks team. I think you could see the complexity that the state has created for the regulations that oversee or guide both the housing and safety element and the continuous changes that the state bring to us. So again, Lindsay and Jacqueline, thank you to you for the presentation this evening and the entire PlaceWorks team. That concludes the presentation, and the staff would be happy to answer questions following the public hearing.
Okay, I will open the public hearing. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on this item? Anybody online? Close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for comment. Questions? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you to PlaceWorks for the report. I've watched it as it's been developed, and the presentation tonight was very good. I had one thing you identified was obviously housing needs, constraints, and the inventory that we're challenged with out here. But one thing that crossed, I didn't quite understand it, was there was a line item that said Joshua trees do not preclude development listed within the report. Was there something or tools that are used to help mitigate that, as far as what I see in our community and what the developers see and the residents see, as Joshua trees can in some ways hinder that development?
So I'll start out on that topic, and then if any of the PlaceWorks staff want to chime in, they're welcome to provide additional input. So the protections currently afforded to the western Joshua tree do not preclude development. Do those protections add costs and add time to development? Yes, they do in their current status. I think, as the council is aware, We are still during the study period for the western Joshua Tree, and no determination has been made as to whether it will be listed permanently under the California Endangered Species Act. But during this study period, if individual developers wish to proceed with the project, they can apply for an incidental take permit with the State Department of Fish and Wildlife. They pay those application fees. They have or cause to be prepared the appropriate studies that are required. And I'll give you a recent example of a solar project in the Antelope Valley outside of Palmdale. That particular project had or involved the take of 86 western Joshua trees and had a geographic area to those trees of 67 acres impact to the habitat of the western Joshua tree. And the State Department of Fish and Wildlife issued a development permit that allowed that solar project to move forward. Again, it takes time, it takes money. No one likes adding those two additional costs to development projects, but that's just an example that development can continue to move forward, albeit with additional regulations.
Thank you, staff, for that. I just wanted to make sure that I voice some comments that I get from the community in our area, primarily Yucca Valley, but also others have engaged from throughout the Morongo Basin, is that those costs, from their point of view, does preclude the development because, as most of you know, we have a budget and we have to work within those budgets, and those become constraints that do limit some development for private landowners for their homes or improvements to those properties that they see fit. So I just wanted to make sure that that is a real issue in our basin, and people do recognize that cost sometimes does preclude the use of their land. Thank you.
Any other council members? Councilmember Lombardo?
Thank you for the presentation. I think PlaceWorks did a great job of taking care of this for the town, and you're contracted to keep us up to date on our revisions of the housing elements and that sort of thing. It all looks like it was done very thoroughly, and I have no real objection to moving this forward. I think I'm in favor of
Councilmember Abel?
Yes, I was a little bit surprised it said in the report or whatever, if I'm reading it correctly, only 65 families are using Section 8 for housing. And does that seem, with your analysis of other communities with the population we have, and like you said, we're a little bit lower income, moderate to low income community, are we under getting out the message to people that Section 8 is available? What would your, go ahead.
I can help answer that. Yeah. So as you guys know, Santa Bernardino County is a large county. So I think one of the first things to note is that a lot of times your Yucca Valley residents are probably competing with a really large pool of people to get those funds for Section 8. But I will say that we did add information in a program to increase education surrounding Section 8, especially with property owners and landlords, to make it known, sometimes discrimination does happen, just kind of incidentally in the nature of things. So we have a program in place to help, encourage the application of Section 8 housing vouchers in the town. And hopefully that means that people that have that opportunity and live in Yucca Valley or would like to live in Yucca Valley would be able to live here using that voucher.
And there's rules and regulations restricting landlords from holding that against somebody if they use Section 8. So it seems like a tool that we definitely need to get the word out to our constituents that Section 8 housing could be a way to gap their income and what's required to get a rental in the Yucca Valley area. It's stated in the report 75 homeless were identified. Of course, homeless doesn't necessarily mean on the street, but it means they don't have a home, so they could be at somebody else's residence or temporarily out of housing, or it could be that they're out on the street. And then also it's mentioned that there's no applications presently for multifamily projects of 16 or more. which, apartments or housing that's a little bit more dense could definitely help with rentals being a little bit more affordable. But is there anything we can do to encourage apartment complex building? Is there incentives the town could do? Is it just a matter of dollars and cents for the developers? Because we're not getting anyone looking at moderate or low-income projects in Yucca Valley either.
I can try to answer that first, Jane, and if you have anything to add, please do. Yeah, from what we've seen in the town, there seems to be, a lack of development overall of multifamily or any kind of, denser development that's not just, piecemeal in the town. And I think that what you're seeking is actually been addressed in the updated housing element, which is really exciting. We've attempted to reduce regulatory barriers to developing housing in some areas. As I mentioned, we amended a program to reduce the requirements to allow mixed use development which can be 100% residential development in that mixed use zone, in a CMU zone, which was primarily more of a commercial zone that had a higher, or a mixed use zone, but it had a higher kind of threshold requirement because it required a specific plan that's much more expensive and a higher barrier to entry for developers than what's now the site plan and design review. So yeah, I think that the housing element and its updates will help provide those regulatory incentives to hopefully spur additional housing production if that's desired in the town.
And just a couple other comments, and thank you for that, Lindsay, in terms of what should the town do. So critical first steps for the town is to plan for development. And how do you do that? You do that with a good, solid general plan, which that housing element is before the council this evening. And you then have a good set of development regulations. And as the council know, we updated the development code back in 2012, 2013, and 2014, bring that up to standard, make it easily understood, easily identified standards that are applied equitably based upon the projects that come in. Number 3 is infrastructure development, because that's one of the biggest costs that developers incur with their projects. And I think that's even highlighted more in Yucca Valley due to and we've talked about this for a lot of years, being infrastructure deficient. So that's why you see your town staff seeking out outside financial resources for the development of infrastructure here. And the most recent example of that is being in the SBCTA's 10-year delivery plan for Highway 62, millions of dollars being brought here. Ultimately, that's going to reduce the cost for developers as they come in with their projects. So planning, both your general plan, your development code, infrastructure development. The final issue then that's been critical and has had an impact on growth in the Morongo Basin over the years and in Yucca Valley is the lack of sewer. And what is happening now? Phase 1 of sewer is wrapping up, Phase 2 getting ready to move forward. So I think the town has put a very good 30,000-foot elevation plan together between its planning documents, its approach to infrastructure, the fact that sewer is here now, and we are prepared to support those development opportunities as they move forward.
Lindsay, this is Councilmember Abel again. A quick question. Have you seen in other communities projects for affordable housing? I know we had a senior affordable housing project that was very successful, very attractive, located in a wonderful area for seniors to be able to access all kinds of different amenities and banking and groceries and all that. And it's been highly successful. It's just not large enough. So 1/3 of our population in Yucca Valley is over 65. And there's oftentimes the ones on fixed income and the lowest income in a lot of the demographics. Have you seen other communities develop low-income housing projects such as a mobile home park, something that can be developed and homes brought in rather quickly, attractive, done safely, and all those types of things, but affordable senior housing in a mobile home type of setting, or moderate income housing done in mobile home fashions?
That's a really good idea. I haven't heard of any examples where they've done specifically deed restricted housing like in a mobile home type model. Mobile homes are typically, inherently affordable in their nature. So I think that's a great opportunity that Yucca Valley could think about and utilize in the future to develop housing for seniors. I think you can definitely, have a mobile home park that is restricted to a certain age and make that, more of an elderly living community. But yeah, that's a good idea. And I haven't seen it deed restricted, but that could be a good opportunity.
Wonderful. Okay, well, thank you for answering my questions. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Rose?
Yes, I think all my questions have been answered by everybody else. So I just want to thank you, Lindsay and Jacqueline, for the great presentation.
Okay, thank you, staff and place work for all the work on this. Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve.
Mayor, I'll second.
Have a motion and a second?
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
and Mayor Schooler.
Yes. Item number 13, Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District, Carl Moyer Program, Heavy Duty Diesel Emissions Reduction Program, authorization to submit grant application. Can we have a staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a presentation for the Carl Moyer Program Heavy Duty Diesel Emissions Reduction Program. The recommendation in front of you is that the Town Council authorizes the submittal of heavy-duty diesel emissions reduction program application, Carl Moyer Program, to the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District due by March 31st of 2022. The Carl Moyer Program objectives are to improving the quality of air in the high desert by funding local cost-effective projects, providing incentives to upgrade heavy-duty diesel equipment using proven technologies and procedures, and reducing oxides of nitrogen, particulate matter, and reactive organic gases from diesel-powered engines. Diesel exhaust is considered a serious of public health risk. So the district has funding for this program. The funding that the district has is $2 million for approximately 10 to 20 projects, and the grant application was due back to the district on March 31st, 2022. The town of Yucca Valley submitted an application to replace an existing mower that is a year 2001 that has a diesel engine meeting California Air Resource Board Tier 1 emission standards, and we would like to replace that mower with the new mower year 2022 with EPA Tier 4 emission standards. And this is part of the town process for CARB small fleet compliance by 2029. The fiscal impact is the equipment cost is $91, probably $92, close to $92,000 for this Tier 4 compliant diesel mower. The district, the Carl Moyer program is an 80-20 reimbursable program, so $73,000 will come from the Carl Moyer program and $20,000 will come from the town funds if awarded for the total equipment replacement of $92,000. The funding for replacement and destruction of the existing equipment can be accommodated with the Fund 800 Capital Project Equipment Replacement Balance. So the recommendation in front of you is that the Town Council authorizes the submittal of the heavy-duty diesel emissions reduction program application, Carl Moyer program, to the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District due by March 31st, 2022. That concludes my report, and I will be glad to answer any questions following public comments.
Thank you. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Anybody online?
We have one person requesting public comment online. Dr. Deborah Savitt, you have 3 minutes. I request you to unmute.
Good evening, everyone. I just had a question. I know you're not supposed to answer questions per se, but this is just more of an educational question. Do you have ways of measuring the air quality in this area? And if so, where do you have the stations at? Thank you.
So the Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District is the agency that's responsible for any air quality monitoring and testing. And as such, the town does not have a role, or as I would say, we don't have dominion in that area. It falls outside of the town's jurisdiction. So the air district does their own monitoring for air standards, air quality standards within their district.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Bring it back to the council. Any council comments? Councilmember Abel?
Yeah, Doctor, my understanding on the air quality sites that they use, it's a huge district. The Mojave Desert Air Quality Management District goes all the way to the Arizona border, all the way up towards Lancaster, Palmdale area, all the way throughout the area. So where they place their large monitoring stations are going to be in areas where there's more industrial activities going on, such as cement plant areas and also highly populated areas. So it would be cost prohibitive for them to put a monitoring station of any size out here. But they do have a program where people can, for very low cost, get a smaller sensor. I think it's called a purple box. And have one placed in their home, and then that is linked to the air quality management district as well. So they get information from those private smaller monitoring stations, but anything of size would not be out here in Yucca Valley because the air quality doesn't meet the standards that they would need to monitor. That's my understanding.
Any other council questions or comments?
It seems like a no-brainer to apply for this, even though the date has passed. We've got the application in, is that correct?
Yes.
The application is in.
And we haven't heard back yet?
It will be some time before we hear
It'll be
back.
some time
Yes.
before it's heard back. Okay. It seems like a slam dunk. If we can get this money to help replace our equipment, I think we ought to do it. It's in the best interest of our community to have the best air quality we can. And by upgrading our diesel engines, that's a great way to start.
Do we have a motion?
I will make that motion.
And I will second.
Council members Abel,
Yes.
Dennison,
Yes.
Droz,
Yes.
Lombardo,
Yes.
and Mayor Schooler.
Yes. We move on to item number 14, the fiscal year 2022-24, draft general budget review, general fund budget review.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening I'll be reviewing the proposed budget for the general fund for the 2 fiscal years of fiscal year 2022 through 23 and fiscal year 2023 through 24. So just as a reminder of everything taken to get to this point in the budget draft, the strategic plan was developed and approved last December. We're currently at the step of the general fund budget review, which is today, April 5th. And then the next step will be the special revenue fund budget review, and then the public hearing and budget adoption at the second meeting of May, which is May 17th, 2022. So as in prior years, the basis of the budget is to provide the financial aspects to successfully execute the council's strategic plan, and then also to make sure that we always provide and present a balanced budget without the use of reserves, which is accomplished here in these 2 years presented. As a reminder, the budget is a constant cycle that the town is looking at, and as you can see here demonstrated, we're at the step right before that budget adoption. Once that budget is adopted, then staff and council is in constant review of the status and can make changes as necessary throughout the 2-year cycle. So here's a summary of the 2 years for 2023 and 2024, which are proposed as balanced, again, with no use of reserves. The total excess of revenue over expenditures in fiscal year 2022 through 23 is $82,000, And in the second year of fiscal year 23 through 2024, the excess of revenue over expenditures is proposed at $250,000. I will review the details of the assumptions provided in this summary in the next slides here for you. So the general fund has several major revenue fund sources. Anticipated total revenues is $16.7 million and $17.4 million for each year. Property tax continues to be the bulk of general fund revenue at over $6 million for each year. The other major revenue sources include sales tax and transient occupancy tax at $4.7 million and $2.4 million projected in the upcoming year. Community development, I can review those revenues in the next slide. And then just as a reminder, the other sales tax revenues that the town includes is the Measure Y and Measure Z revenues, which will be included in the special revenue fund budget review. So the sales tax trends forecasted resume a more normal flow at the continuous up and down that you see per quarter. You can see that drop in 2020 due to COVID-19. It was brief, so it was a sharp drop and then jumped right back up to record highs there in 21, 22. So we're assuming a conservative approach that those trends will level out a bit and then return to that normal pattern that we've seen over the years. Transient occupancy tax shows that really quick growth again in 2019-20, and then we're using conservative estimates that it won't continue at such a steep climb and will return to, again, a more normal revenue growth pattern over the next 2 years. Property taxes, again, we are following a normal revenue pattern trend for the next 2 years. An important thing to consider is with the increased property valuations that you see with real estate sales in the area, that could affect those upcoming property tax revenues for the town in the upcoming years. So you could see that actually forecast period go up. There's a little wiggle room there based off of those. These are considered the minor revenue sources that don't get quite as much of the bulk of the budget. Interest earnings are expected to increase over the next 2 years due to the Federal Reserve's increasing rates and those higher treasury yields. Franchise fees are expected to increase in the second year of the budget cycle due to the additional green waste collection in the upcoming Burtec franchise fees. Community development revenues are contingent on the Western Joshua Tree of whether that will affect the building permits, et cetera, that come through that department. So we've just taken a middle-of-the-road approach and continued them at more of a flat rate than increasing over the years to make sure, we're conservative in those approaches. Administrative revenues have increased actually quite significantly over the past year due to increased economic development and business activity. So business registration fees, the SCR compliance monitoring fees are all lumped into there, and we expect those to continue at a somewhat similar trend that we've seen in the past year or so. So jumping to expenditures, the anticipated expenditures are $16.6 million and $17.1 million in each year. Operating supplies and services, it shows a 2% increase. We'll get into those details of what that includes, but overall it includes the current programs and services that the town provides with some minor increases for recreational program that were previously reduced due to COVID-19. So I'll jump through each of these categories here for you. This is the overall trend of major expenditures. You see that dip in 2021. That was due to the town's approach to COVID-19, which was to reduce spending in case revenues dropped. That was not the case for the town, but staff was very conservative in their spending levels for that year. So that's why you see that decrease and kind of a higher climb for the year. You would have seen a more regular upward trend without that COVID-19 impact. Programs and services are budgeted at $4.3 million, just about the same in both year. The majority of increases from prior year include insurance costs, legal service fees, utility service costs, and then additions for general inflationary pressures. This does accommodate expanded programming costs for recreation events that were previously not included in prior year budgets. Personnel services are budgeted at $5 million and $5.5 million in each year. This continues the 1% supplemental pension contribution, and then it has a few additional full-time positions for animal control and code compliance. And then in the 23-24 year, there are some part-time positions included as well. This also includes a proposed cost of living adjustment and other employment-related costs such as health benefit allowances, et cetera. Public safety is estimated at 5.1 and 5.3 million. The town receives a finalized Schedule A contract at the same time that we usually do the budget adoption, but we should receive that number from the county sheriff's department within the next week so we can finalize those numbers. We're currently estimating a 4% increase. That falls within the trends of prior years. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it goes up to like 5 or 6%, depending on what their personnel needs are. So we could see that change a little bit. And just as a reminder for Measure Y fund, it does help supplement those public safety costs for a few of the positions and the maintenance of service. I presented this graph at midyear and thought it was slightly helpful to see just how those public safety costs have been assisted by Measure Y over the years, and then also how the total cost has just slightly grown. Same with the trends of the other major expenditures for the town. In total, for the general fund summary, it's proposing a healthy fund balance of 51% and 66% of expenditures. The second year shows like a slightly higher operating reserve balance in case, since it's another 2 years in advance, it provides a little bit more of a cushion if necessary for additional programs and services. It will vary slightly with the final budget adoption as we take your input today, and then we will, in next steps, review with all of the departments, see if there's been any changes or requests based off of your direction, and then we'll propose those final adjustments at the upcoming meeting. Everything is within reserve policy range, which you will see here. The town's current policy range is 50 to 55%. Again, we see that slightly higher reserve balance in 23-24. As you can see in 2021, it's helpful for the blue bars. You can see how much really the town's general fund balance has grown just in that 2020-2021 period, and how we've been able to kind of moderate that back down to a more normal level. So next steps, as I've mentioned several times now, is the May 3rd Special Revenue Fund draft review, and then the May 17th budget adoption. So the recommendation for council this evening is to receive and file the staff presentation of the proposed budget for the general fund for fiscal years 22-23 and 23-24, and then also provide comments and direction to be incorporated into the budget for that final adoption on May 17th. I'll be happy to answer questions after public comment.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public that wishes to comment on the budget, proposed budget? Anybody online? Bring it back to the council for questions, comments.
Once again, I think you have a very clear presentation, Jordan, of our town's financial situation, and the budgeting is, I really appreciate the 2-year look at things. I think it really helps us stabilize our planning and allows us to be more reactive to things that we don't know yet what's going to happen. And we've been conservative in our handling of the money, which I think we should be very proud of. You've done a great job, and the town manager's done a great job of getting a lot out of the budget that we have. And I think our community is very thankful. I think we're on the right track with this budget, and I look forward to having it go into effect.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Just one comment. Thank you, Jordan, for that. One thing that I really appreciate with staff is that we do project costs on projects that are not here yet, that haven't been realized yet. We've been working on many projects in our community that require, continuing maintenance and personnel to operate. And so those are things that are always identified early on with any project that's developed with staff and council guidance. That's a key component to have sustainability for those things to go on for years and years to come. And I thank you very much for always making that point clear in the budget It's very important for the public to know that these projects are not just built, they're built with sustainability. So we don't really know what the numbers are yet, what they're going to be, but I always like to see that hedge in favor of continuing the projects. So thank you very much for that.
Any other council member comments? Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for the excellent draft. Wondered if if there's anything built in there to address items like community appearance, cleanup, entryways, and like that.
So the current draft just includes existing maintenance of services provided within the regular town departments for parks, et cetera. So if there was any input for additional community cleanup, we would receive that direction now and include it in the final budget.
Well, I would be in favor of that myself if the rest of the council wanted to chime in on that. And also of affordable housing, if we could make some strides in that direction. Not sure how that translates to the budget, but I would like to see that be a priority as well.
Yeah, I think we need to have some special conversations on how we can do things to make housing more affordable in our community. But I'm not sure that that's part of this budget necessarily. But I do agree with you on the cleanup and the presentation of how our community looks as you drive through it. Is that what you were talking about, trying to improve maybe the appearance of dressing up things that are just need cleanup in some
Well, I'm just
places,
thinking
or
there's a lot
repaint
of opportunity on the corridor as you drive through to reflect the personality of what's
in
happening.
Old Town as well. While we use that area more and more, it would be nice to have some incentive maybe for the businesses to put a fresh coat of paint on things or dress up the areas that are overgrown and that sort of thing.
Mayor, if I might, so your existing budget contains continuation of your current levels of services that you've provided direction for in the past. In various funds, whether it's a general fund or special revenue fund or Measure Y, there are some resources available. But in a program such as community beautification, there's a number of different facets that can take. And so I think what might be helpful is for staff to come back and present to you a more comprehensive look at the different things that we're doing. So for example, in the budget that Jordan shared with you this evening, one of the placeholders that we have in there is for additional code compliance resource that can help the town in its efforts, whether it's for your commercial corridor, whether it's for private property, whether it's for neighborhoods across the entire town. All of those different areas and services, it's just one type of activity that we can do, but there's many others. Some are projects, some are programs. So I think following your direction this evening, we'd be happy to bring that back to you and give you a kind of a more comprehensive picture of what that program looks like in its totality. And then on the affordable housing side, clearly the town's not going to be able to wave its magic wand and provide affordable housing, but there may be steps that we can take, and it may be incremental things that as you reviewed your housing element this evening and heard of some of the barriers that have been addressed in your housing element, some of the specific steps that the council authorized through that element approval today that can encourage affordable housing. Maybe there's other small steps that we can do, again, whether it's a project, whether it's a program, or some combination of that. So I appreciate that input this evening.
Okay, well, thank you for that input. Is there council concurrence that we'd like to have a look at that?
I'd like some clarification if I could. We talk about, the budget and so forth, and I agree, we've been talking a long time about the corridor and how important it is to maintain it, keep it clean, with the weeds and trash and those types of things. But we also had talked about a while back of trying to develop a program, like you said, facelift or facade improvements along Old Town and bringing up the appearance. Also, it's very hard for our staff or because of Caltrans and access to maintain the medians. They just don't look as nice as they could and so forth. So maybe a long-term solution of more hardscaping in those medians, and so we're not dealing with, weeds popping up all the time. Things that we can do along the corridor to clean up the appearances. With code enforcement, it's great to crack down on code enforcement, but you, like you said, you have to give the small business people some tools that they can go to help bring their building up to standards or to appearances. So I don't know if that goes into the budget or if that's something that can be talked about future.
I think what you've identified is just how nuanced the program is and how widespread it is. So it can affect all of your, or many of your special revenue funds. It will affect your general fund. It may be incentive funds. It may be compliance issues. It runs a whole gamut. And I think that would be helpful for the council maybe to see all of the different areas that may be impacted when we talk about community beautification, enforcement, compliance, incentives, all of those things
Yes.
that would be desirable for a community. I think having that bigger, broader picture would be helpful, so we'll be happy to put that together for you.
Excellent.
I think the timing is right for that, and we're in a good position to be looking at that, so if we could get options on that as a council in concurrence with that.
Always nice to have information.
Is there, we don't need a motion on this, this is receive and file?
So the action is to receive and file, and you reviewed alternatives, and so yes, receive and file the presentation of the proposed draft budget.
Okay, thank you, so no motion necessary. Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 15, Town Council meeting calendar review, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This last item before you is a review of the current Town Council meeting calendar. As you may recall, the council recently approved the 2022 meeting schedule in January of this year. Currently, the council meeting schedule is dark for the meetings of July 19th and August 2nd. We are anticipating a couple of timely administrative items moving forward, which would require action in late July. So staff is bringing back this discussion of the upcoming meeting schedule for the council to weigh in on availability during that time. This could warrant holding a regular meeting on July 19th or considering a special meeting as needed. Staff would be happy to answer any questions following public comment.
Any member of the public wish to comment on this? Seeing none, bring it back to the council. Any questions? Any comments on your
You're trying to-
availability?
The idea is to know when we're available, or?
Because it looks like we might need to change what the council has already set in place for this year to have those two meetings dark. So we're looking to see your availability, if it's possible, if we could change or what we might look at.
So maybe to facilitate that, council, one of the options might be to cancel or go dark on your meeting of July 5th and your meeting of August 2nd. That would give you one meeting both in July and August. Alternatively, if the council prefers, you can keep the meeting in July, both the 5th and the 19th, and go dark the entire month of August to provide you some additional flexibility. Summer, as you recollect, due to schedules, vacations, et cetera, gets a little bit problematic sometimes in pulling together a quorum. But again, we always have the option of a special meeting if needed, but typically, I think for some of the items that we anticipate moving forward, July 19th would be a target date for that meeting to occur.
Yeah, my personal calendar would not allow a July 5th meeting, but a July 19th I could schedule.
I agree.
Does anybody have a problem with July 19th and August 16th for the summer meetings? No conflicts there?
Don't believe so.
Works for me as well.
Make the 19th available.
Okay, and it works
It
for
will
me
be
as well.
dark on the 5th,
If we were dark on the 5th, that's the
meeting on
question.
the 19th,
Meeting on the 19th
dark on the 2nd,
and a meeting on the 16th of August.
meeting on the 16th. Okay.
That makes,
Everybody's good with that?
Okay. Yeah, that sounds like it works.
I
Is that
don't see,
sufficient time?
I don't see any conflicts with that. That doesn't require a motion, I trust. Okay,
No motion,
okay.
just need discussion.
Is that
Thank you.
sufficient input? Okay.
That
All right.
works, thank you.
We'll move along to future agenda items. Any member of the council have any future agenda items for us tonight? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I was kind of waiting to this period to talk about it, but as you mentioned, some of the things just along community cleanup, I agree 100% on that item, and that we can take a deep dive on it and understand some of the items that we've had that maybe staff over the next, before our next meeting could gather some ideas and put it out there. We've talked many times about different models of community cleanup, and I think that would be a good time to put that list together.
And I think everybody already agreed to that as a priority. Okay. Any other future agenda items? No? Public comments. The town council takes this time to consider your comments on items of concern which are not on the printed agenda. When you are called to speak, please state your name and community of residence. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. Inappropriate behavior which disrupts, disturbs, or otherwise impedes the orderly conduct of the meeting will result in forfeiture of your public comment privileges. The town council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not on the printed agenda. Is there any member of the public wishing to make a comment? Anybody online?
We have one person requesting public comment. Dr. Deborah Savitt, I request you to unmute. You have 3 minutes.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I just wanted to discuss the Joshua Tree protection for just a moment. And this is just to remind you that our planet is presently at 415 parts per million carbon dioxide. It should be at 350 parts per million. There's a 28-page climate impact report posted on the County of San Bernardino website that states we are experiencing global warming, and it describes in great detail how we will have longer periods of hot weather, higher winds, less rain, and changes in weather patterns. That's on the County of San Bernardino webpage. Just another reminder that plants and trees sequester carbon into the earth. Trees and plants are the lungs of our earth. Therefore, we need not to see the Western Joshua tree or any tree or plant as an annoyance to building projects in the town of Yucca Valley, as they save our lives and the lives of our future generations. I'm asking this town to quit giving the Joshua tree protections a bad rap. It should be required by local governments to educate the importance of our protected and non-protected plants and trees, to educate new home purchases and projects coming in about not cutting down the indigenous plants and replacing them with high water non-indigenous plants and trees. I see this quite often. This should be written into the plant codes. I think you can all be more creative, as you have shown with many of your other projects, which I think are fantastic, and Joshua tree friendly by incorporating builders or educating them and then the new residents to become more eco-friendly and educating them on balancing nature with real estate development so we can basically do both. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Savitt. Is there anybody else? Okay, no more public comments, so we'll move on to staff reports and comments.
Staff, anything this evening? Shane, you have anything? I'll get to, go ahead.
No, we continue with the senior center projects. North Park have just started last week, moving forward with surveying, and to the residents that Caltrans is working on State Route 62, as we all noticed yesterday. This week, they're going to be working on Thursday between Church Street and Pinion. So just to expect delays in that area, and we were in contact with Caltrans yesterday due to the delays and all the issues that we have with the traffic. So there is a possibility that next week Caltrans has some changes in the scope of work and put the paving operations at night. But we are waiting on that things to be confirmed by Caltrans. That's it.
Council talked this evening in your budget comments about the appearance of the highway. One of the things was also discussed at your last meeting that's underway now is landscape architect working on options for the improvement of the public rights-of-way along Highway 62, and that's part of that overall effort. We've got the basketball court upgrades that are underway, the tennis course upgrades that are underway. We're looking at the preliminary analysis on the senior center as well as many other projects. So a lot of activity going on right now. I would like to primarily comment this evening about the Western Joshua Tree and how it affects town operations. I think as the council recalls, the town was part of a 2084 permit issued by the Fish and Game Commission that allowed the town to issue take, and take is a technical term under the California Endangered Species Act, to issue 450 take permits for the Western Joshua Tree. That authority expires at 11:59 p.m. on Monday, May 9th. After that time, the town can no longer issue any take permits for the Western Joshua Tree. The process that's embedded in the town's regulation requires the Planning Commission to approve those take permits. So we need to have a cutoff date of which individuals submit to the town. Those applications are reviewed by staff. Many times we have to kick back the arborist reports because they're not complete or they have other technical fallacies that prevent them from moving forward to the Planning Commission at that time. Takes the arborist time to get those back, get those returned back to town staff. Town staff then has to write staff reports. And we've got to get that Planning Commission packet out about a week prior to the 9th. So the packet's got to go out around May 2nd. Staff needs at least a week, a little bit more than a week in advance of that to prepare those reports. So we've established a submittal cutoff date of 4:30 on Wednesday, April 20th. For any Western Joshua Tree take permit application that needs to be submitted for a development project with the town. Again, the commission is going to hold a special meeting on Monday, May 9th. Their normal meeting would be Tuesday, May 10th, but their authority already expires, so the commission, at least a quorum of the commission have agreed that they are available, or indicated that they are available to meet on May 9th for a special meeting so they can take action on the final batch of Western Joshua Tree take permits. So what else is occurring in this time frame? So the Fish and Game Commission is going to receive and file a staff recommendation at their meeting of April 21st. The agenda has been posted. This item is on number 19 on the consent agenda, but the staff reports and the staff recommendations have not yet been made public. Just the agenda, but the backup material has not been added to that page. We anticipate, based upon conversations with Fish and Wildlife staff, that recommendation in the staff report will be posted to the webpage sometime around the 11th or the 12th of April. Around 10 days prior to the hearing is their goal and what they indicated. We have been told that the Fish and Game Commission will take no action at their April meeting, and in fact, they will not even discuss the matter. They can take public testimony. The public will be allowed to comment on the consent agenda, but we've been told that the commission itself will not discuss that agenda item, and it will be scheduled for review at their meeting of June. I believe the date is 16 and 17. So again, no action in April. But we do anticipate the possibility of action in June. The commission's not required to take action in June. In fact, there is no state mandated time period in which they must take action on the staff recommendation. This could actually drag out for quite some time. Even when the commission does act, based upon individuals we've spoken to, no matter what action they take, litigation is anticipated. So if the commission lists the species onto the California Endangered Species Act, it's anticipated that a number of business entities will file a lawsuit. If it's not listed on CISA, it's anticipated that the environmental concerns will file litigation. So we may not know the final outcome of the potential listing for quite some time. But then the question surfaces, what is the impact to the town and how is the town going to respond? You heard comments under the housing element presentation this evening about a project in Palmdale. And from what we've been told, the state biologists used a 96-foot radius to determine the impact to the western Joshua Tree for that solar project in Palmdale. So if we have to apply that same standard for any development permit in Yucca Valley, you can imagine the impact to those property owners. The state is not going to give us a standard to work with, and that's normal process under CISA. When a new species is added, it takes the State Department of Fish and Wildlife time to enact their regulations, to put those in place. But that leaves communities like Yucca Valley that have a very high density of the western Joshua Tree in a very, very difficult position, and potentially very significant impacts to what people can do with their property in that interim period. Now, there is a permitting process available, and we talked about that a little bit earlier. That's the incidental take permit process. That's very expensive, and it's very time-consuming. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, and let's just use the example of wanting to put in a swimming pool or building a single-family home with a swimming pool. You're talking application fees approaching $50,000. That's just the application fee, let alone any environmental studies that are necessary, and let alone and these are estimated time periods, 9 to 18 months that it may take to process that permit application, as well as any CEQA documents that are necessary to correspond with that. None of these comments that I'm making this evening are negative, nor are they a negative comment or perspective of the western Joshua Tree. These comments are about reality of the situation that we're facing. Nothing more than that. Town staff has reached out to professional biological consulting firms that, if necessary, to step in and assist the town, not only on our own projects, such as Onaga and Little League if necessary, Prop 68 if necessary, any of the other projects, but can the town apply for a permit that would result in standards similar to what we have today under the 2084? And that's the 10 foot away from the Joshua Tree, cutting no more than 12 inches in depth in the soil, and that type of approach that on a townwide basis would allow infill single-family residential development to continue. When we see the staff recommendation come out around the 11th or 12th, hopefully, if the recommendation is to list the species, we are going to be setting up meetings immediately with Fish and Wildlife staff and initiating these conversations and discussions. And it's very likely we'd be back in front of the council with appropriations for biological consulting firms and any application fees that would need to be submitted to Fish and Wildlife as a part of that process. We also may be coming back as we move through many of the unknowns that we're working with on this topic. We may be coming back to the council with a recommendation to adopt some standards that either through consulting with CEQA experts and biological experts on the western Joshua Tree, maybe we've got to take a lead role and develop some standards that assist this community and the property owners in this community in being able to continue to move forward. There's unknowns there. We do not have anything in mind, any specifics, but it's something that we have to look at and I think continue to evaluate as this process moves forward. So again, Monday, May 9th at essentially midnight, our authority expires. The last day to submit for take permits to the town is April 20th at 4:30 p.m. The Planning Commission will hold their last meeting on May 9th, which is a special meeting, Monday, May 9th, and I'm sure that staff will be continuing to return to the council and update the council as the evolution of this process continues to move forward. Thank you for allowing me to go on for a little while here this evening.
Thank you, Shane, and thank you, council, for the patience. That's not an agenda item. These are just comments, but they're germane to deadlines that are coming up, and they're very important for the community. The only thing I'd add to what Shane has already captured this evening is residents that have moved here have invested their hard-earned money in properties here, and so we're going to do as a town and recommend to the town council to advocate on behalf of our residents to the degree that we can defend it, and to the degree that it's legal. And some of those questions will be policy questions that the council has to work through. So know that we're going to do whatever we can to advocate for our residents. We think that's the least that we can do for them. I want to welcome this evening Lieutenant Waybold, so welcome. Great to have you here. Anything that you want to update the council on this evening?
Good evening. I don't believe I have anything to update the council on. Just want to say that I'm excited to be here. I appreciate the welcome I received from the council and the mayor. And I'm looking forward to working with each of you and the community.
Awesome. Thanks, Lieutenant. I don't know if Sue has anything else to add, but I do know two events that the public will want to know about. The Youth Commission is doing their Encanto outdoor movie this Saturday, I believe, at 6:30 here in the courtyard. And then before our next council meeting, we'll have the Easter egg hunt, 9 a.m., I think, on the, what day is that? 16th. Thank you. Appreciate that. Last thing, Mayor, is just two shout outs. One is, I don't know if any of you participated. I know the mayor did. He may talk about it, the Little League opening day. So a shout out to our Public Works and Park staff. Rusty and his team just did a terrific job making that facility look great for the first day out there. And then lastly, to Jordan and her team for getting the budget moved forward. We're on schedule. We're early. We're working through that process. And so we're hopeful that that will continue on its scheduled approval for the next 2-year cycle. So thank you, Mayor. Appreciate your time this evening.
All right, thank you. Councilmember comments? Councilmember Abel? No comment? Councilmember Droz?
I'm just going to say that over the last week, I attended two functions. Both of them, well, the first one was in Pioneer Town. It was the Wolf Walk, and that was wonderful. That raised money for the no-kill animal shelter in Joshua Tree. And there were a lot of people there. It was great weather. And then also the Rotary fundraiser, the dessert soiree, and that money went to Copper Mountain College. And they were both great events. So a lot of money was raised for the community. It's amazing how people come together in this community to raise money, and it just happens. It's really we're a close-knit community, so that's wonderful. And that's it. Everybody have a great weekend.
And Councilmember Lombardo?
Really not much to say, but thank you for the work on the budget, and the town seems to be moving forward in so many directions, lots of projects. Thank you, Armando. A lot of things happening there. It's always fun to see our town change and grow into something more. Been a long time waiting for some of these things, and they're happening. It's really kind of cool. Very excited about it. And Councilman Droz is right. We have a very close-knit community, and we have a very generous population who helps raise money at times of need for things that are necessary, and always been fun to be a part of it. So thank you and have a great week, and we'll see you next month.
And Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to thank the High Desert Water District for coming out and giving a presentation to the town. One of the most valuable resources we have here in the desert is certainly water. Without a doubt, it's the hardest thing to move, and it's probably one of the rarest resources we have. Obviously, we bring it in from another place. So thank you for that, and some of the discussion about future partnerships. I'd like to see that become a reality. One Legacy had a really good comment today. They're back again, and donors are a huge part of society to help those as we can. And I have a little dot on my card, and I hope if you haven't gotten that dot from the DMV on your card to become a organ donor or tissue donor, it's something that has a lot of value and makes a big difference in people's lives. I was, as staff mentioned, at the Tri-Valley Little League opening day. Got there early, left late. Great weather. And unbelievable, they believe that they'll probably have about 500 athletes once the season gets in full swing, but right now they're over 450. So great participation. If you find yourself wanting to go out there and coach, serve snacks, do anything to help out, they're looking for umpires too. There's still a great need with that many kids out there, and certainly if you have the time to stop in once in a while, it could really make a big difference. I'm hoping to be out there soon, helping with some field prep. I don't have the Monday, Wednesdays, Friday mornings off yet, but I'm going to get there. One other thing, big thing on the community, on their mind, was our highway and the construction that has started again in the valley. As you know, it's become apparent to a lot of commuters that use the highway in and out of town every day that there are some problems. I'm very happy for the town crews and the staff. Road signs were put out there. We're stopping access in areas that became problematic for commuters. Once they get into these places with other cars, they were getting trapped. So we're doing all we can to stop that. My advice would be you have to leave early, be patient, and stay on the designated highways and follow the detour signs. Don't try and make your own detour. It could become problematic where you could be stuck for hours if cars get too stuck behind you. And that's all I have today. Thank you.
Good comments. I would just add on Tri-Valley Little League's opening day on Saturday, that was a great event. It was just so heartwarming to see the 450-plus kids out at the field with their coaches and their uniforms, and just being out, because I think the last few years they haven't been able to have an opening day and not too much of a season. So, and across on the other side of the park, soccer was going in full force too. So I think a lot of smiles on people's faces being able to be out, and it was a great day. And the fields did look great. The town staff has done a great job in renovating those fields. And I think the Tri-Valley organization, Jen Cusack and the board have done a great job pulling the program together, and a lot of enthusiasm. It was just really good to see. We always like to welcome new restaurants in town, and we're about to see the restaurant and music venue over at All Bar, the former Gotti's. They seem to be just about on the cusp of opening up, so we look forward to that and wish them well. Thank you for the budget presentation. Again, it was awesome, and you continue to inspire confidence in our staff and our financial position. I want to remind everybody that we have Coffee with the Mayor on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of every month, the council days over at the Roost Cafe at Hawks Landing Golf Course, and everybody is welcome to come. That's at 8 o'clock on the 1st and 3rd Tuesday of the month. So with that, seeing no other comments, the next, okay, we'll mention that. We also have tried our hand at a podcast, the town podcast. So wherever you find podcasts, or you can Google it, it's called Yucca Valley with a colon, Yucca Valley Plugged In. We welcome your feedback. It's a good venue or avenue for communicating with our people. So we're launching that. We've got the first episode out, so take a look at that. Let us know what you think, and we'll be doing that twice a month. So that being said, the next regular meeting of the Yucca Valley Town Council will be held on Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the Yucca Valley Community Center Yucca Room. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting.